Just so honored, and it's such a pleasure to be invited here today to share with you. Our missions are in complete alignment. We have so much in common, that service and volunteering for a purpose and to bring people together. And in fact, many of you, and I know Harvey Schneider is on this meeting here today, he is a very active member of Habitat for Humanity, as well as is a Lion. And I'm sure many of you have volunteered with Habitat for Humanity and can not only reach out to me, but to one another about those experiences. And today I'm going to share some of my personal volunteer experiences with Habitat for Humanity. It is true that I am employed by Habitat, and I take that role as very humbly, and I do give very much. I say I give, but actually, as we all know, when you give, you gain. I gain far more. In fact, that's the first time I've even described it as giving. But today I want to share a few of my personal experiences with you. The photo that's featured here on my cover page, you see a few women. This is the first Habitat for Humanity build that I ever personally participated in. It's a woman build. Women builds are very empowering. The construction site supervisor was a woman. Her assistant was a woman. They teach construction at the local community colleges. This was in Monroe, Michigan. And the funny thing about that, not only was it very empowering, all of us women, teaching one another, trusting one another with power tools and building. I mean, we put the roof on this house, and we did all this within a 5-day period. But there were men who normally served as the construction site supervisors and so forth. And there were about 3 of them that stood across the street the entire 5 days and stood there with their arms crossed, just watching us women build. And they were waiting for us to have to call them in. And that moment never happened. Again, very, very empowering. So when Wendy Burns invited me to join you to say a few words, I was completely hooked when she said, I said, what brought you to me? Like, where is this invitation stimulated? And she immediately seemed to brighten up and say that Jimmy Carter stated that he would not have been president of the United States had it not been for the Lions. And I watched that YouTube video and listened to that powerful video firsthand. And if I were in a room with all of you, I would ask you to raise your hand, those of you who believe that Jimmy Carter founded Habitat for Humanity. In fact, feel free to chat in the box if you'd like, or raise your hand. But the truth of the matter is that is a myth. Jimmy Carter did not found Habitat for Humanity. Millard and Linda Fuller are our founders. They were self-made millionaires living in New York. They were not satisfied with their marriage, their life, and so forth. They felt there was something missing, and they stripped themselves of their wealth and moved to Georgia after spending a month at Koinonia Farm with a man named Clarence Jordan, who we refer to as our spiritual founder. There they built what it was referred to as partnership housing for working people who were Black, who could not walk into a bank to get a mortgage. Many people who were Black who were slaves, whether they were enslaved or not, but in this case, they were freed slaves. Even if you were working, had income, you could not get a loan unless you got a loan from some sort of community loan or neighborhood loan. And in this case, Koinonia Farm, the loan was called partnership housing, people building housing for one another in partnership and contributing to their loan funds. Koinonia Farm is in Plainville, Georgia, where Jimmy and Rosalind Carter have always lived. That's where they met. They currently still live there. And Americus, Georgia is the home of Habitat for Humanity. That is where Habitat for Humanity was founded. We now also have a home base in Atlanta because it was closer to the airports. But Americus Georgia still employs a couple hundred people with Habitat for Humanity, and it's literally a bike ride down the road from Plainsville, Georgia. The two communities are connected, and you may still visit Koinonia Farm today. So if you are looking for a vacation and would like to learn some history about Habitat for Humanity, you may visit Koinonia Farm. You can look it up on the internet. They sell products that you may purchase and while giving to a good cause. And the products that you may purchase are grown right there on the farm. They still house people in a communal setting who don't really have anywhere else to go. Some of them are homeless. They're in a transition in their life. They need a place to go, get resettled, and get back on track. And so they work and live in that communal setting until they're ready to leave Koinonia. And our history there, if you do visit there, we are rooted in civil rights, as I've already provided some of that history. And we're a relatively young nonprofit, especially considering the huge brand value that has been accomplished in a short amount of time, because we were established, as you see in the slide, it was 1976 before we were actually incorporated. And, you know, I have had the honor and pleasure of working with the Carters. All of the photos that you see here are from my personal phone and camera from some of the builds that I have attended. So this would be an example where the Carters were walking by us at a build, but we were always very accessible with them, very close in proximity. When you go on a Carter build, it's very much like attending a camp where you are all equal and you work together. So again, the Carters are what they are our greatest volunteers. Both President Carter and Rosalind dedicate one full week per year volunteering with Habitat for Humanity during the annual Carter Work Project. They work with Habitat for Humanity International to determine the location. I've had the honor and privilege and pleasure to join a few Carter Work projects in Vietnam, Haiti, Canada, Nashville, and in this photo, we were in Indiana, which is the last in-person Carter Work project that was hosted. I've also shared a few meals with the Carters on other occasions, and I attended a Sunday service, which you may all, again, if you are looking for a very interesting historical vacation, you may attend the church where President Jimmy Carter still teaches and preaches there in Plainsville, Georgia. And again, this, you can see him looking right at me. He's probably saying, why is this woman taking a picture of me during my sermon here? But he's used to it. We follow all the rules. So, but I believe no matter what your politics are, hopefully you know Jimmy Carter is a wonderful humanitarian and teacher, and I know that the Lions appreciate that as much as Habitat for Humanity. So just a couple more personal pictures. You know, at the end of every Carter Work Project build, this is the house I was building on for 9 days, and the Carters are wearing the hats. I have a hat on with a scarf around my neck in front of the white shutters there. And you really bond together. The people wearing the green shirts are the household family members who bought the house. And the rest of us were there serving as the volunteers to build it. But they do take time to have everybody have a picture. On that particular house, the Carters were directly across the street. The road, it was a dirt road, all encamped. We were there building about 200 of these homes, and it was just a gift to be right across the pathway there. And these were photos I took as I was building, and you see the Carters, they literally are out there, and it looks like we're comfortable, but I'm telling you, it was over 100 degrees to the point where you have to wear clothing to cover you or you will be burned by the sun, no matter how much sunscreen you have on. And in the one picture that shows the two gentlemen up on ladders and then the Carters providing some safety measures there, those are their sons that joined them on this build. Also on these builds, Garth Brooks and Trisha Yearwood have been being cultivated by the Carters to be strong humanitarians and volunteers with Habitat for Humanity. And again, they're very gracious in this circumstance. This is the food tent that we all commune and eat together in. And they served the food. They were in the line serving the food. The Carters were at a table in there eating among us. And they're this approachable, which still stuns me to this day. That when they're there with us, they're there as a volunteer equally with all of us. And then these are the types of housing units we build outside of the US. Primarily, it's shelter to have a dry floor, sanitation brought in, a space to cook, and it's a shelter from weather, from hurricanes and so forth. And we do build them to withstand the weather of that area. The pink house was in Haiti, and it's a great example where there were 2 consecutive years that Habitat built hundreds of units like this. And this was built the year before I attended. And you see the hedge that was planted as a heart. When I saw that and was pointing it out, I thought, oh my God, you just wanted to drop to your knees in tears that they planted a hedge that's a heart. And in 1 year, you can see the pride that was here. The yellow house is one that I helped build for a family in Vietnam, where it literally took people off of living on a fishing boat. How do you live on a boat in contaminated water? And that was their reality. And then the pictures below, we hadn't cleaned up yet. But you see that there's a sink with water to prepare food and an actual toilet inside of that yellow house. Otherwise, it was 1 room and that's it. No bedrooms. None of these homes have bedrooms and so forth. They are literally shelters. Another thing that we have in common is that we are a global organization. So we have Jimmy Carter in common. We're a global organization. We have 1,300 local Habitat for Humanity affiliate offices that do the building, that engage with the families throughout the US. We're in 70 countries in the nation. That's what this slide is a visual of, very much in alignment with you wanting to unite people in 200 countries. We unite people in 70 nations, and we'll hopefully grow that as well. In Michigan, we have 48 local Habitat for Humanity offices. Every one of them has their own board of directors. One example is in Bay County. Again, Mr. Lion Harvey Schneider is here with us today, and maybe he'll jump in at the end of my remarks and help enhance. So that's a picture of Habitat for Humanity as businesses. I'll do one more bit here with President Jimmy Carter, because it's so near and dear to my heart. But when I joined Habitat for Humanity in 2008 and 2009, I went on my first Carter work project in Vietnam. And it was the first time the Carters had returned to Vietnam since the war ended during his presidency. It was very moving. I was one of 2 people from Michigan. There were like 2 people per state that were invited to this gathering at this dinner event with the Vietnamese government and the Carters. And it was there that I had this picture taken with former Carter president using a little Polaroid camera, and he was so gracious with me. He made sure the light was just right. He kept moving me around to get the right light, and I'll forever be thankful, because in my mind, this is like one of the most cherished pictures I'll ever have. And if it would have been dark and not turned out, I probably would be sort of sad about that. But that picture has actually even been published in some other publications, not so much anymore, but at the time. But anyway, back to, if I may go back to the Carters here momentarily, what they spoke about was that they hoped that returning to Vietnam would help unite Americans and Vietnamese people and help heal their war wounds of the past. The Carters dropped tears as they spoke. It was very moving and genuine. I witnessed a lot of healing during that build. And our Michigan office organized builds to Vietnam for Vietnam veterans for years to come. We have documented videos. I mean, it is powerful to listen to the Vietnam veterans that returned, experience some of what they did while they were there, and then they return feeling healed, and they spread that. And that was, someone mentioned like the awesome moment or the moment of awe as a lion. And when I heard that, I thought this was one of those moments that I realized that Habitat for Humanity had the power to heal and bring world peace. And as Lions, you can all relate. So President Carter would say Habitat provides a simple but powerful avenue for people of different backgrounds to come together to achieve those most meaningful things in life. A decent home, yes, but also a genuine bond with our fellow human beings. A bond that comes with the building up of walls and the breaking down of barriers. And anytime I've been in the presence of the Carters, they've always shared that they gain more than they give, and no amount of money could pay for all that they receive. So Habitat for Humanity, moving on to, what is Habitat for those of you who don't know? And oftentimes we think about, pushing up a wall, building a house. We saw that in the videos, and the videos, believe me, depict, we are centered on the families and the people we serve. We start with the people, but the way that we are able to respond to their needs is that we are quite a matrix of a business that even I, joining Habitat, was not familiar with. I thought, okay, home buying, but there's so many ways to be involved with Habitat and so many skills that we benefit from. It's a wonderful opportunity to fulfill your inner need to serve others using your time, talent, treasures. Each local affiliate has a volunteer board of directors. We host events for fundraising and educating about our mission. When you think of volunteering with Habitat, we do house building for sure, but we also have many skills in land acquisition, fundraising, managing a board and staff, running a small nonprofit development company, volunteer coordination, marketing, advertising, real estate, mortgage readiness, what it means to own a home, getting a home financed during construction, and then helping the family get a mortgage when they are ready to purchase. We also do home repairs for people who already own their homes to help keep them in their homes, and also through foreclosure prevention. We are a multifaceted business, and we do all of this while staying centered on people and their needs first. We start with the family and not the house. So how do you get a Habitat house? That was a question that I was asked when being invited. Habitat provides a hand up to people, not a hand out. Our families are our partners, and they qualify for our programs in 3 ways: demonstrated need, ability to pay, and willingness to partner. And I'll talk a little bit about what each of those mean. Families apply to the nearest Habitat for Humanity affiliate to begin the qualification process. Their current living situation is assessed to determine if the family is in need of decent housing, which includes health, safety, sanitation, modifications needed to accommodate disabilities, and affordability. Habitat assures the house is affordable and that the family will not pay more than 30% of their income toward the mortgage and utilities. We work very hard to build and rehabilitate homes to be the most energy efficient in the market. And this helps the environment, another thing that we have in common, and it helps keep money in the pockets of the families. All of our families pay a mortgage, they all pay property taxes, and many people who already own their home, who get a home repair project, often make financial contributions to the project, and sometimes they even have a loan for the home repairs. We do put grant money and donations into the houses, but we are not a giveaway program. All of our families must be willing to partner, and the families fulfill that commitment by completing the program, which includes financial and budget education and a minimum of 250 hours of sweat equity per adult per household member. The sweat equity is labor, which is often completed on the house they move into, or other homes, or working in restores and helping other families build and repair their homes. All of our families are personally invested and have skin in the game. I mentioned restores, and I would love to ask you how many of you have visited a restore, and if you haven't, please do. It's another skill set, another volunteer opportunity, and another business that we are. We are also retail shops. Our restores are nonprofit home improvement stores that directly support the Habitat for Humanity efforts. All restores are open to the public. Anyone can shop there. Anyone may donate. We have an inventory of new and gently used goods that we consider hard products, meaning Goodwill is soft with clothing. Habitat is hard with building materials donated from building contractors, manufactured items, the general public. All of you may donate and shop there. And if you're a thrifter or a picker, you will love restores because you just don't know what you're going to find there, and the inventory is always changing. There are more than 50 restores across Michigan that generate about $13 million a year in profit that goes back into our mission. That represents about 30% of the income we need to raise to do what we do. And the restores keep tons of materials out of landfills. I talked about Women Build, I talked about Veteran Build, the Vietnam Build, the Carter Work Projects. We do other branded builds like Veteran Build. In Michigan, we're the #1 Veteran Build state, which is surprising when compared to Texas, California, with the number of veterans. In comparison, it's thought that we have about 500,000 veterans in Michigan that could use a hand and some partnership. And it's also an opportunity for veterans to volunteer with us to continue that inner need to serve. We also accommodate people with disabilities who are living in housing that's making them sick. Asthma is really big in Michigan, and is mold in housing and so forth. And we do other specialty type builds for people who are aging in place and so forth. But the main people that we serve with home ownership opportunities are people with children. It used to be that our #1 house buyer would be a single mother with children, but it's now leveled up to be married people with children as well as single people with children. You know, there's nothing better than that moment when you hand keys to a partner family, because we know that their life has been stabilized, that they will experience better health, less stress, more education, better jobs, and that they will be invested members in the community with opportunities to thrive. So if you would like to be involved with Habitat, you can easily search local habitats by county name usually, or visit habitatmichigan.org. We have find an affiliate, find a restore, and then habitat.org can plug you into the Carter Work Projects and other builds across the nation, and our faith builds and our I'm forgetting what the global village builds. Those are very deeply meaningful experiences as well, if you would like to build in other nations. And I'll wrap it up with a quote from former First Lady Rosalind Carter. For anybody who wants to get involved with an organization, there is nothing that they could do that would give them such life-changing experience as Habitat. This is something that brings people together who have everything they need, and those who don't have so many things we take for granted. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Sandy, for sharing your morning with us. You've been very inspiring. I suspect that there are going to be people in the audience who are going to become Habitat volunteers. It was interesting to learn just how many ways that we are, things that we do have in common. We talked earlier about that kindred spirit, but learning that we're also geared towards service. We have past President Carter in our history, global orientation, we're geared for world peace, we're interested in preserving the environment, and the list just seems to go on. Your talk was so thorough that there really aren't very many questions, but I have a couple anyway.
Okay.
You talked about the criteria for qualifying for a Habitat home. And you mentioned a couple of disabilities. Are there disabilities where specific designs are put in so to accommodate particular disabilities, like maybe the person has to have a wheelchair, that sort of thing?
Absolutely. And the wheelchair is an example where since 2010, every house we build new meets higher energy efficiency standards and accessibility with a wheelchair standards than code. Every house has a wheelchair entry that is accessible, as well as a turn radius in one bathroom and the first floor common areas, because we want people to not have to make those modifications if they ever encounter that in life. And we want people to be able to visit other people. And so we try to be leaders in the way we build, where that goes. And then every family, that's where we start with the family first. More often we start with the family before we start the house, so that we know and understand what they need to make that house work for them.
Thank you.
Yep.
About how many homes per year do you build in Michigan and nationally and internationally?
Oh, wow. In Michigan, we're building about 40 per year. We're selling them. We're rehabilitating about 40 and selling them. So sometimes we take existing housing, and I'm going to show an example of that here. And you see the wheelchair, how the home is built with an accessible entrance and so forth. But we can take and improve communities with examples like this. And then we do about, right now we're over 800 home repairs per year. And we want to work back to doing more home ownership opportunities, and we're trying to increase those, especially with our veterans, because they often need certain modifications to their current housing or built into the homes. And but the current economy is really keeping our numbers down from where they can be when, you know, things don't cost so much and there's not such a shortage of labor and so forth. So we are being depressed that way, but I am amazed at how much we are doing. And we can do financial coaching and budgeting, even if the people don't buy a house, if you're in need of those services.
There's so much more to Habitat than I understood. We don't have any more questions. Thank you again so much for a very inspiring talk. I'm so glad that you were able to participate with us today.
And I'm so glad. Thank you so much. You prepared me well. And I'm learning a lot about being a lion, and I really value that as well. Thank you.